vote. Philippe? Oui. Thank you. And that's passed by 25 to 9 with 2 abstentions. So that will now go to plenary. Thank you. So I'm extremely pleased that we've just voted on the changes to the Firearms Directive, and during a long negotiation we have managed to come up with an amended proposal that defends the interests of legal owners of firearms, but also closes some loopholes, especially on poorly deactivated firearms. So in particular, we've had a common firearms law since the 1990s. The Commission proposed many changes. The original Commission proposal would have been enormously difficult for hunters, for shooters, for collectors, even for museums, and would have been very, very difficult legally. So we have completely rewritten this to come up with what should be a much more workable proposal. But at the same point, we've also closed a loophole regarding so-called salute firearms, and these were very poorly deactivated and sold without permission, and then were used very sadly in the Charlie Hebdo attack, and other caches of these so-called salute firearms have been found elsewhere, including in the UK. So closing that loophole was important for security reasons, but also having a balanced proposal that works. I want to make it clear that that change on deactivation only applies to the so-called salute and acoustic firearms. These are ones that converted from live firers into blank firers, and they will now stay in their original category. A totally deactivated firearm that can no longer be used and cannot be reconverted, you will not need to have a license for, but you in the future will need to notify the authorities. This was a complicated negotiation, but that was the exact issue, was these salute and acoustic firearms that were too easy to get hold of and then too easy to turn back to fire live ammunition. There is some detail that is causing a bit of confusion at the moment, so maybe I can take you through. The Commission original proposal wanted to ban anything that resembled a semi-automatic firearm. That would have been incredibly difficult legally. You know, what's a toy, what do reenactors use, etc. So instead, after much negotiation, there is a limitation for civilian use, for normal civilian use, on semi-automatic centerfire firearms when they have a high-capacity magazine inserted into them or part of their, built as part of them. There is a special permission that that can still be used by existing holders, by collectors, by target shooters, and it's at the member state discretion whether or not they want to give those permissions, but they can definitely give those permissions. Okay? So if you've got one of those at the moment, if you're a target shooter, you need to get your permission from your member state to continue using it. Regarding magazines, there is no ban per se on magazines, but if you don't have that special user's license, you just have an ordinary license, and you are found in possession of a high-capacity magazine, your license can be taken away from you. There's nothing to say you can't get it back once you rectify the situation. You're not breaking the law, as it were, but you will lose your license until that's rectified. That was a position that the Parliament, you know, initially we would rather not have had that because there are a lot of these magazines out there. We felt very important that we shouldn't criminalize people just for this, but as part of the wider negotiation, we agreed it because it was extremely important to a lot of the national government's concerns. So it was a really big point for them. Going forward in the future, if you want to buy a high-capacity magazine, you need to have the special license for those Category A weapons. This doesn't apply to historic items or military reenactors because they don't need a license in the first place because they're not using a firearm, they're using a deactivated firearm, which is treated separately.